On this inside line, I'm testing out if 37s will work with no lift on my 2021 Jeep Wrangler Rubicon 392 equipped with the Xtreme Recon package. All right, let's get to it. Now for tires and wheels, I'm using a 37 by 1250 R17 Nitto Trail Grappler, and it is mounted on a 17 by 8.5 AEV Borah Dual Sport wheel. Now this is mounted in the true beadlock configuration, and it has plus 25 millimeters of offset and 5.72 inches of back spacing. All of that's important because I really like the fact that it has a high back spacing figure. It's going to keep it underneath the fender well a little bit better than something, let's say, with 4.5 inches of back spacing, and it's going to keep the scrub radius down, which is really going to kind of help with the steering and overall drive and handling quality of this 392. Now, another thing that's important to note is this 37 is a very true to size 37, meaning compared to, let's say, some of the other ones on the market, this is going to be one of the taller 37s that you can get, and I think that's going to be really important for cycling this tire and seeing what basically is going to hit and what doesn't. So if you're looking at running a real true to size 37, this is going to tell you if it's going to rub or not. Other than that, I really like the Trail Grappler. I've got them on some of my other vehicles, had really good luck with them in the past. This set was actually pulled off of my Gator Gladiator because I wanted to make sure that I wanted to run with a 37 before I made that big leap of purchasing this set. I already had this wheel set that had the right back spacing, had the right lug pattern, so I can give this a go and see if 37s is right for this 392. So let's get to testing. Now for the spare tire, I didn't have to make any modifications. All I did is unbolted these 2 bolts and just moved it up where I'm only using the 1 bolt, and that gives you enough room to easily clear the 37 and still have your brake light up there. So it's worth noting, if you're not familiar, the Xtreme Recon package does come with the Mopar reinforcement for the tailgate, and it has the bracket that raises the spare tire. So as I showed you, all I had to do is raise that up to clear the tire there, and down here you actually have plenty of room for the tire to clear. It does not hit the rear bumper, doesn't rest on it, and it's not an issue to open or close. The bushings right here, these are the factory ones that come with the kit. They're pressed against the tire, no big deal, and it's still really easy to open and close with one hand. So that's how that setup is. Okay, so rather than flexing this thing out in a ditch, I wanted to see an easy way if it would rub, so I took out my solid axle S10. That is a 40-inch tall tire, and yeah, we're using that as an RTI ramp. And check this out. The cool thing that I'm pretty excited about here, so it's pulled up all the way to where we have bump collapse, which is a little hard to see. I apologize for that. But the bump is completely collapsed up here. You know, that's not going to go anywhere. And the tire is actually clearing. You can put, look at that, whole hand right there. I'm not touching any part of this lip, and I'll walk around just to check it and show you how much clearance you have there. So my experience has been 1 inch of lift with a 1-inch bump stop has worked for the 37 with this, like a Rubicon JL platform, and in the Gladiator. So I'm not super surprised there. A little disappointed that it doesn't have more articulation. I'm kind of surprised with that. I feel like the shocks are a limiting factor here. Now out back, not surprisingly, we are rubbing. And it's not a ton of pressure. I mean, you can move this fender pretty easily, but you can't put your finger really too much in here. And so what you're hitting mostly here is this plastic on the inside. Now, like I say, this is a wheel with a ton of back spacing, so it's tucked in a lot more. If I had, let's say, 4.5 inches back spacing, I'd be all into this, and this would be a lot worse. It's pretty clear here down at the bottom. Again, right into this part here, you're definitely going to be pushing this on the trail. This would be a problem. I don't think it would be enough to rip the fender off, but it might. In here, it looks a lot worse than it is. You can actually put your hand on the top side of the tire, and you're just barely touching the plastic. Really, aside from the front, the other problem area rests back here. There's a little plastic that you could take off. I've had to do that in the past on JLs with 37s with a 2-inch bump, and they tend to rub at the bottom right here, this little piece of plastic. I've had to actually trim that up so it doesn't rub. So this is the factory, you know, 1-inch bump stop that they give you, and this is kind of where we're rubbing. It's going to be hard to see, but I'll try to show you that it's on bump in the back. That's going to be tricky. You can see that bump is completely collapsed. So this is as much as this is going to go in, at least this way. Obviously this is articulated. This isn't very scientific. You know, I'm flexing it out on a solid axle S10 after all. So please take this for what it is. Just trying to show how much room, or at least what my experience is with 37s. Okay, so remember up front, it was all bumped out. Look at that. You can put your whole hand all the way around that thing. Now it looks like it's touching here. It's not. It's close, but you still have room. So this is pretty awesome. You can definitely run, you know, obviously driving this thing around, 37s hasn't been a problem, just, you know, your normal street driving. But, you know, off-road, you can cycle this 37 up front without an issue, but obviously in the back is going to be a big deal. I'm not touching my control arms, and I haven't found that it's touched the front bumper, so that's been good, even with this, you know, high back spacing. That's a really good thing. So like I say, don't take this necessarily for science. I'm sure that if you were articulated in a more aggressive way off-road, you might find that it will rub, you know, in a different way. But at least for right here, it's just rubbing in the rear, which is really good. So that's, I mean, something that still needs to be addressed. I bet you a 2-inch bump stop would really help in the back. And then this is a better shot of that plastic panel. So this piece right here is just a little flimsy, you know, kind of cover. You take that off, that'll clear out some room. And then right here, what you end up having to do is trim this up right up to about there. And that gets rid of any rubbing. You're not going to be able to do anything about it pushing up against this, unfortunately. So that's really where that extra bump stop is going to come into play. So the first thing you might wonder, did this affect the power? No, it did not. It still has plenty of get up and go, and I really can't tell a huge difference between having 35s and 37s. They feel very similar in terms of power. I do have the Taser, so I can put this thing into 2-wheel drive, and I can still smoke the 37s if I want to. So yeah, I don't think you're going to notice a huge difference there. This being the Xtreme Recon package means I do have 456 gears, which is fantastic for these 37s. I actually think the 37 and the 456 gear seems to be the perfect combo for this setup. I do think this tire and wheel package is probably a little bit heavier than what I moved from, but not enough that it seems to make a big difference. These Jeeps don't get great fuel economy, period. You know, my best tank has been like 15.5. My worst tank has been 11. It tends to average right around like 13.5 to 14. That's sort of the average. In terms of overall handling, you really don't notice a difference between the 35s. You know, this thing having this 4 auto configuration can be a little weird to get used to, but I really like it for no other reason than when you punch it, it just goes. Versus if you had the whereas in 2-wheel drive, you do have more of a chance of tire slippage. It's not as pronounced with the 37s, but it'll still do it. So I like this. I think the 37s in terms of overall drivability have been, I think, an improvement over the 35s. Now, the 35s I was running were it's a Ridge Grappler, which is like a hybrid terrain tire. This is obviously a mud terrain, so it's a little bit louder, which honestly, now that it's half door season, I put the factory half doors on. It kind of negates the tire noise because you get so much wind noise from the doors, it doesn't really matter. But, you know, if you're thinking about a 37 and you don't want something as aggressive as, you know, this, I like the Ridge Grappler. It was pretty quiet. So I still like the Trail Grappler if you're really going to be wheeling. I think it's a great tire, and it's a tire that you can honestly daily drive. It's not that big of a deal. It's not like it's some extreme tire that is, you know, makes the Jeep kind of drive terrible. You know, these things aren't balanced. They've never been balanced. I put them together in my garage, you know, a long time ago, and they've been great. I'm running about 32 PSI in them right now, and that's perfectly fine for cruising down the road. So overall drivability, moving up to 37s, I actually think it's an improvement with this gear ratio overall. Power has not been affected that much. It's hard to say with fuel economy. These things just don't get that great. It doesn't seem to actually hurt it or make that big of a difference, so that's good. I live in the coastal plains of North Carolina, so 456 gears and 37s for me so far has been great. If you live in the mountains, maybe that's a little different, but it does seem that this is working out just fine. Okay, so the good news is this setup kind of works. Well, if you're going to go off-road, yeah, you're definitely going to rub in the back, and it's going to need to be addressed. Because the last thing you want is to be on the trail and rip off your full fender in the back, which it wouldn't take that much to do. So at the very least, it needs a bump stop modification in the back. These things come with a 1-inch bump stop. It could definitely do well with a 2-inch bump stop and a little bit of plastic trimming. The real issue I found over the past, I guess, 5 or 6 months of ownership with this thing is the front suspension seems to top out very quickly, and that's super annoying. Couple that with the fact that it seems to be a little undervalved in the front. It really makes me think that aftermarket suspension might be the right way to go, at the very least, just to get that front end more under control. The problem is I really like how low this is with the 37, so I'd like to preserve that as much as I can. So I really kind of want to wait to see what suspension manufacturer is going to have something that's going to be in that 2-inch, 2.5-inch mark and give me a little bit more travel and be specific for the 392. So that's something I'm just gonna have to wait and see. For now, I'm gonna probably keep rocking the 37s. I feel like it works very well. I'm happy with how it stops, happy with how it steers. I just like how it looks visually. And for the little bit of wheeling that I'm doing with it, I can tolerate the rub. I know as soon as I take this thing up to the mountains, I'm gonna have a problem, so I'm gonna have to eventually address all of this anyhow, but for right now, this is pretty good. I really am enjoying this Jeep. It's a lot of fun. Now that I got the half doors on, my kids are just loving it. The SkyTouch top has been fantastic. This is just, I'm so glad that Jeep made these, and I know that the V8 in general with the Jeep organization is dying and going away, but I'm stoked this thing even exists. So if you guys have any questions for me directly, you can always find me on Instagram at Ali Mansour Editor. If you have anything specific to this Jeep or any of the other builds, feel free to drop them in the comments. I try to stay as active as I can to get you guys updated on everything. Got a lot of cool stuff coming to the channel, so please consider subscribing, because we definitely got some neat things that, especially if you're into Jeeps, that hopefully you'll enjoy. And yeah, I'll be doing an S10 feature coming up soon. I know people keep asking me about my S10, and I promise I'm going to do something on it. I just don't want to do a driveway feature, so I just want to go take it to the mountains and have fun with it and do a little trip, and then I can get back into that. That truck was built quite a few years ago with low range 4x4 here in Wilmington. It's such a super fun truck, and yeah, I look forward to kind of giving you the whole history of why I built that truck and everything else. So that's it. Hope everyone is doing well and staying safe, and I'll be seeing you guys on the trail soon. Take care. Bye-bye.